Okay, so welcome to today's daily digital micro webinar on easy Excel reports. So I'm going to try and dispel that myth that pivot tables are difficult to use, and I'll show you that they are in fact easy to use and are an efficient way of summarizing Excel data. So we have a spreadsheet here that originally came from Registry. The details have been anonymized, but it's used to track the number of tickets that people have requested for degree ceremonies. So we've got data such as name, email address, date of response, and number of tickets and number of extra tickets. So to quickly summarize this data, I can insert a pivot table of it, and I can do that in just 5 clicks. So I click within the data set to begin with. I go to the Insert tab. I choose Pivot Table. Click OK. And then I can add the data that I'm interested in by ticking the boxes. Okay, so that if you're counting, that was 5 clicks. And I now know how many guest tickets have been assigned. And then I can just experiment with the data. I can experiment with this report. It's a report upon the data. We're not changing the data. So I can just mess about with it until I get it looking like I want, until I get the information I need. So if I add program title, for example, I now have a breakdown of the number of tickets by the degree program. If I add in extra tickets, I now know how many extra tickets have been assigned to each degree program. Let's see what else we can add. Let's add this award type, whether it's a bachelor's degree or a master's degree or PhD or what have you. If I don't like the way it looks, as I said, I can rearrange it. I can pivot it. So I can use this panel on the right-hand side, and I can, for example, move this field by dragging it above the other field, and look how it changes. So I've got a more useful view of the data. If I don't like it all in the rows, I can move fields to the columns and present data in that way. Again, I can rearrange within the field panels as well to get it looking slightly different. If I don't want anything there anymore, I can just drag it away to remove it or untick it from there. Let's see what happens when we add dates to a pivot table. We get them broken down into years, quarters, and dates. Okay, so again, if I rearrange this, move program title to the bottom, see whether that looks better, and it arguably does. So now we have the year, and then the quarter, and then the month. Okay, so that's done by grouping data using this group selection command on the pivot table analyze tab. Okay, so I could change it from years and quarters and months to years and months and dates. Okay, so that grouping is particularly handy with dates, but you can apply it to numbers as well. So you could group numbers into blocks to see the frequency of the data. So we've got the number of guest tickets, we've got the number of extra tickets. Well, what about the total number of tickets? We don't have that in the source data, but we can create a field in the pivot table by going to Fields, Items, and Sets, and then choosing Calculated Field, and then set in our formula. So we want to add together guest tickets, so we select that, plus extra tickets. And now we have that field there, which I could have named something else. So I can use the panel over here to go to value field settings, and I could call it something else. I could call it overall tickets. And also from that value field settings dialog, I can change how the data is summarized. By default, it's the sum of the data, the total, but I could change it to say the average or the product or the min or the max. So I could change this to average tickets. Finally, if we want a visualization of this data, we can use the pivot chart button to instantly insert a chart of our data. And the layout of the chart, how the chart is displayed, reflects the pivot table. So if I collapse these dates down, we can see a visualization of our pivot table in the form of this pivot chart. Okay, so hopefully that gave you some ideas as to how to use pivot tables in Excel. I'll stop the recording.